Question number 1 is the name of Hanzala Malik. I note Mr Malik is not in the chamber to ask it. Question number 2, Jamidi.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what further measures it will take to combat bullying in the NHS.
Cabinet Secretary Alex Neil.
Presiding Officer, culture, values and behaviours will be a fundamental cornerstone of the 2020 workforce vision, which we aim to launch at the NHS event in June. This will present a further opportunity to restate our commitment to providing a working environment in the NHS in Scotland which is free from bullying and harassment.
Jamidi.
Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the National Confidential Alert Line, soon to be launched, is being keenly awaited by NHS staff and trade unions, as it will provide an additional level of protection in the workplace, and that, as well as being independent of the NHS staff who have any concerns over standards of care, patient safety or treatment of staff, including bullying, will be able to make a complaint over the phone to this whistleblowers helpline, secure and safe in the knowledge that their complaint will be taken seriously, fully investigated and acted upon.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I am aware that the National Confidential Alert Line is keenly awaited. The contract to provide the alert line has been awarded to Public Concern at Work, and I am pleased to say we are making excellent progress in preparing for the launch of this free phone service on the 2nd of April this year. I am confident that this service will support and enhance existing procedures by providing an additional level of support for staff who wish to raise a concern about practices in NHS Scotland.
Dave Thompson.
The Cabinet Secretary will know that I have constituents who are members of the organisation called Patients First, which was established in England and Wales and is now developing in Scotland. These are, in the main, NHS staff who have an interest in whistleblowing issues and other issues within the NHS. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what he would do in terms of, or could do in terms of, being able to support Patients First and others involved with them as their organisation develops?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, one of the things I have done is that in preparing the tender document for the alert line, I consulted, amongst others, Dr Kim Holt, the founding member of Patients First, to get her feedback from her own experience in London and her experience in particular with Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, to get her input to make sure that we were covering all the right angles in terms of the tender specification. And I had very positive and helpful input from Dr Kim Holt, and I expect and I will continue to talk to Patients First about the development of our policy to make sure that we have a very robust implementation of our intention to eliminate bullying and harassment in NHS Scotland.
Question 3, Maureen Watt.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with the Two Sisters Food Group regarding the acquisition of Vian Food Group's UK red meat and poultry businesses.
Cabinet Secretary Don Swinney.
Presiding Officer, Scottish ministers and officials have held extensive discussions with representatives of the Two Sisters Food Group in recent weeks regarding the proposed acquisition of Vian UK businesses.
Maureen Watt.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? Does he agree with me that the safeguarding of 280 jobs at the Macintosh Donald facility in Portlethen was essential for the employees, the local community and the economy, as well as supporting the trusted red meat and poultry brand renowned for its quality and responsible sourcing, which has remained steadfast throughout the mislabelled meat scandal?
Cabinet Secretary.
I do acknowledge and very much endorse the points that Maureen Watt has made, and clearly the acquisition of Vian UK's operations at Portlethen, in Cooper Angus and at Cambuslang, and also the supporting infrastructure within the agricultural sector has been very important in ensuring we have stability of ownership of major elements of the food chain within Scotland. The point that Maureen Watt makes about the quality of traceability that is followed by all of these operations is now an even more premium item in the food processing sector, given the other issues with which we are wrestling at the present moment. And I certainly assure Parliament of the keen interest of the Government, our agencies in Scottish Enterprise and Scottish Development International, to work closely with Two Sisters in ensuring they have a strong and effective foothold in the food processing market within Scotland. And we will continue that dialogue in the months and the years to come.
Question 4, Jamie Hepburn.
The Scottish Government how civic society is engaging with the process involved in the lead-up to the independence referendum.
Cabinet Secretary Nicola Sturgeon.
Civil society is already a central part of the debate and discussing the opportunities that would be generated by and for the people of an independent Scotland. As just one example of that, I would cite the STUC's work on A Just Scotland, which is a wide-ranging consultation between the STUC and its members and across Scotland's communities on our constitutional future, and we certainly welcome such engagement. It's absolutely right that civil society should be centrally engaged now, because following a vote for independence in the referendum, civil society would have a key part to play in taking Scotland forward.
Jamie Hepburn.
I thank Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Would the Cabinet Secretary join with me in welcoming the decision of Scotland No. 2 branch of the Communication Workers Union to back our country's independence? And does she regret the language used by the leader of the Liberal Democrats in Scotland, where he described the decision as Turkey's voting for Christmas, saying one of the big strengths of the UK is the universal service? Surely that is language unbecoming of any parliamentarian, let alone a party leader, and somewhat ironic, given that the Ofcom has already concluded there's a very real risk to universal service. Surely the threat to universal service comes from the UK Government, of which Mr Rennie's party is part of, not independence.
Cabinet Secretary.
Can I thank Jamie Hepburn for that question? Can I say to the Chamber that I warmly welcome the vote by the members of the Communication Workers Union. Let me quote from the motion that was passed. It said, "We recognise that under consecutive governments the gap between rich and poor has widened, and that the UK remains one of the most unequal societies in the developed nations of the world." It goes on to say, "To this end, we believe that the only way forward for workers in Scotland is to secure a yes vote in the referendum, and we agree to do all in our power to secure such an outcome." And I thoroughly agree with that conclusion. Can I say in conclusion, Presiding Officer, in response to Jamie Hepburn's comments about the leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats, he's not in the chamber, so I will confine my comments to saying that I think this is one of many positions that has resulted in him being the leader of just 5 MSPs, and perhaps the biggest problem he faces is that his colleagues are propping up a Tory government in Westminster that the people of Scotland did not vote for and do not want.
Question 5, Patricia Ferguson.
To ask the Scottish Government when it last met the Board of Creative Scotland and what issues were discussed.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
Scottish Government attends regular meetings of the Board of Creative Scotland as an observer, most recently on the 20th of February 2013 when strategic matters were discussed. I am due to meet the Board next on the 21st of March.
Patricia Ferguson.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer, but I wonder in her future conversations with Creative Scotland, the Cabinet Secretary might ask that they think again about how they support our film and TV industries. I have had several reports which indicate to me that support for those who wish to produce new work is sadly lacking, and that the process used to decide which project is funded is convoluted, and that potential producers have found it very difficult to engage with the conversation, and the Cabinet Secretary's intervention in this issue would be most gratefully received.
Cabinet Secretary.
There's regularly raised issues around film and television. I'm very keen to support that sector. I'm more than happy to make sure in my discussions with Creative Scotland that the points that she is raising are made with them. And I also am looking forward to positive news about the progress in that area. In relation to funding streams, the action plan that was produced by Creative Scotland only last week set out review of funding streams more generally, and I will ask specifically what that will mean for film and television in particular.
Rod Campbell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will recall her visit to Fife in February to meet with representatives of Fife Council, Creative Scotland and elected representatives to discuss the future of the bar. Can she advise what recent discussions have taken place with Creative Scotland regarding its general review of its funding approach in Scotland, which will be of particular relevance to the future of the bar?
Cabinet Secretary.
The answer I just gave to Patricia Ferguson outlined that one of the points within the action plan particularly relates to review of funding models to enable as many organisations as possible and appropriate to benefit from stable multi-year arrangements, including an end to the plans for strategic commissioning. Now, also changing the perceived funding hierarchy will be helpful, but for a number of organisations that stability will be very important. But clearly in relation to the Biotheatre, there is important discussions that have to take place with Fife Council and indeed the new Cultural Trust there in particular, and I'll be encouraging, as I have done at the meeting that he attended, that those discussions take place. And I would like to thank Rod Campbell and indeed all the Fife MSPs that attended that meeting for the very positive suggestions and also constructive support.
Question 6, Malcolm Chisholm.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it will take to improve the standard of care for adults with congenital heart disease.
Cabinet Secretary Alex Neil.
I recently approved the establishment of a national managed clinical network to promote the improvement of high-quality, safe and person-centred services for children and adults with congenital heart disease in Scotland. The Scottish Congenital Cardiac Network will be launched on the 1st of April 2013.
Malcolm Chisholm.
While recognising that survival with congenital heart disease is a success story of modern medicine and welcoming the establishment of the managed clinical network, does the Cabinet Secretary understand the serious concerns of those with congenital heart disease about the absence of national standards and also the particular difficulties they frequently encounter when visiting and having to attend accident and emergency departments? Will the Cabinet Secretary therefore ensure that national standards are established and implemented as soon as possible, as well as A&E protocols, including 24-hour phone access for A&E doctors to the specialist service at the Golden Jubilee Hospital?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I'm actively pursuing all of these issues mentioned by Malcolm Sturgeon and Malcolm Chisholm, and I'm doing so. I'm doing so in cooperation. I shouldn't.
Interesting concept.
It's an easy way to answer a question, really, isn't it? It was deliberate, Presiding Officer. Can I say that we're doing so in consultation with our colleagues south of the border, and as the member probably knows, the Department of Health set up a review of the 2006 commissioning standards for England and Wales, and will take cognizance of them when developing our own national standards.
Question 7, Alex Ferguson.
To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to encourage the use of air source heat pumps.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, when Fergus Ewing, the Minister for Energy, launched the microgeneration strategy for Scotland in June of last year, he announced an increase in the budget for our Energy Saving Scotland Home Renewables loans. This increased the loans available for a renewable heat initiative to £10,000 per installation. This has resulted in a 6-fold increase in the rate of applications. We also provide small business loans for energy efficiency and microgeneration, and the £50 million Warm Homes Fund can help registered social landlords and local authorities install renewable technologies such as heat pumps on their properties. This funding is supported by free and impartial advice and information from the Energy Savings Trust in Scotland, who we sponsor to advise householders, businesses, communities and local authorities through its network of local Energy Saving Scotland advice centres across the country.
Alex Ferguson.
I'm grateful for that answer, and I do acknowledge those steps. But can I ask the Cabinet Secretary why it is that, why it's the case in Scotland that planning permission is still required for the installation of these air source heat pumps when it's not required across the rest of the UK and hasn't been for some time? That requirement adds a cost of at least £150 to each installation and can only act as a major disincentive to householders, social landlords and others who are seeking to decrease their carbon footprints. So can I ask when the Government will remove this requirement and therefore catch up with the rest of the UK in this regard?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think, to be honest, Presiding Officer, I don't think the point that Mr Ferguson makes is substantiated by the fact that there has been a 6-fold increase in the rate of applications. I think issue which has been slowing up the application of the move to air source heat pumps has been the lack of clarity around the financial arrangements, particularly emerging out of the domestic renewable heat incentive, which has taken some time for to emerge from the UK Government. Now, we've taken these steps to try to encourage the development of this area. The increase in applications, I think, is reflected, or is a reflection of the increase in support that the Scottish Government is making available. If Mr Ferguson has particular examples that he wants to cite to me where planning permission has been, or the necessity to secure planning permission has been an impediment to taking forward this whole development, then of course ministers will consider that, and I give them that assurance today. But I think we should welcome the fact that we're making more progress, because we've actually put in place a regime that is of some assistance to householders around Scotland.
Question number 8, Richard Baker.
Officer, to ask the Scottish Government when it will announce the location for the Energy Skills Academy.
Cabinet Secretary Don Swinney.
Discussions with industry and with skills providers have taken place, and an announcement on the Energy Skills Academy approach will be made in the next few weeks.
Richard Baker.
On 28 February, the First Minister said that detailed announcements will be made in the near future on the Energy Academy, which we on this side would welcome. As the Cabinet Secretary knows, I'm always keen to welcome good news from the Scottish Government when there is any. Can he tell me when an announcement will be made in more detail, so I can prepare to welcome Scottish Government's decision to base the Energy Academy in Aberdeen?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, it's been this morning. I didn't think that I would come to Parliament today to experience a revelation, Presiding Officer, but I've certainly experienced a revelation if Mr Baker is lining himself up to be somebody that celebrates good news. It's not something I would ever have accused him of at any stage in the past, and of course he does some football connections that make it difficult for him to celebrate much good news or to experience much good news, which of course he and I have a mutual interest in sharing. But I do assure him that very good discussions are going on with the industry. The First Minister and I took forward some further discussions in this respect just on Monday in Aberdeen, and we look forward to the announcement, and of course we look forward to the welcome that will be accorded to that announcement by Mr Baker in due course.
Murray Mott.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware of the work that's initially already been done by Aberdeen University, Robert Gordon University, working with Aberdeen and Banff and Buchan College, which is going to become the new regional college. And obviously, as an Aberdeen member, I hope that the Skills Academy will be based in Aberdeen. But is it not essential that other institutions, higher and further education institutions, come on board with this? Because there are not enough skills within the North East area, and we must encourage students from other areas like Fife and Renfrew, where there are already oil-related jobs, to come on board in the oil and gas industry, which has an exciting future.
Cabinet Secretary.
I think Maureen Watt makes a number of absolutely correct and appropriate points about the necessity to ensure that whilst the focus of energy activity has clearly emerged out of Aberdeen in the north east of Scotland, and there is a tremendous critical mass of activity and the global centre of expertise located within the city of Aberdeen, there are also opportunities in the oil and gas sector and in the renewables field right across the country. And part of what we have to ensure is achieved as a consequence of the Energy Skills Academy approach is that we capture the innovative thinking that has been brought forward by the University of Aberdeen, the Robert Gordon's University, Banff and Buchan College and the Aberdeen College in advancing this proposal, but that we take it forward in consort with all aspects of the energy sector, be that within the oil and gas sector or within the renewables field or in the wide cross-section of other areas of activity that we have, and ensure that these opportunities are taken forward. There are some real issues of congestion of activity in the north east of Scotland, which some players within the industry are already resolving by undertaking activity in other parts of Scotland. That is to be welcomed because it strengthens the overall proposition of Scotland as a major centre for energy activity. And as the First Minister and I heard from Oil and Gas UK representatives on Monday, the industry has a very strong and a very buoyant future, and we look forward to strengthening that yet further with the commitment under the proposals for the Energy Skills Academy that the